What you do between 8 and 9 a.m. predicts your entire future. That single hour decides whether you move closer to the life you want or slip further into the life you're trying to escape. Most people throw it away without even noticing, lost in phones, rushing out the door, reacting instead of creating. But the truth is, this 1 hour is the most powerful window you'll ever have. Guard it, and it will build your destiny. And to understand why, you first need to see the hidden problem with the way most people spend their mornings. The problem with most people's mornings. You wake up, and before your feet even touch the floor, your hand reaches for your phone. It's almost automatic, you don't even think about it. Within seconds, you're pulled into a flood of notifications, emails, texts, news alerts, social media updates, 1,000 voices screaming for your attention before you've even had the chance to think your own thoughts. And just like that, before the clock strikes 9, your mind has been hijacked. This is how most people live, rushed, distracted, pulled in every direction except forward. They wake up and immediately surrender control of their most powerful hour. They think it's harmless, just a quick check, just a few messages, just one scroll to wake up. But the reality is brutal. That single hour between 8 and 9 a.m. quietly sets the rhythm for everything that follows. Here's the trap. You believe you're making choices throughout the day. You believe you're deciding what matters, what gets done, and what doesn't. But in truth, your first hour decides for you. If it begins in chaos, your mind stays in chaos. If it begins scattered, the rest of your day is scattered. And when enough days pile up like that, scattered days turn into wasted weeks. Wasted weeks stack into wasted years. And wasted years, they build a wasted life. Think about it for a moment. When was the last time you started your morning calm, intentional, and focused, and then the rest of the day collapsed into total failure? Rarely, if ever. But when was the last time you started your morning rushed, reactive, foggy, and then the entire day slipped through your fingers before you could catch it? Almost every single time. That's not an accident. It's cause and effect. Your brain is not fully awake when you open your eyes. It's soft, malleable, like wet cement. The first inputs you feed it, the first actions you take, the first things you allow, and they carve grooves into that cement. Once it hardens, the pattern is locked in. The way you spend this hour programs your mind, and your mind programs your life. But here's the tragedy. Most people are pouring chaos into that wet cement. They let in arguments, deadlines, memes, scrolling, stress, and confusion. And then they wonder why their days, their weeks, their entire futures feel out of alignment. The cost of this wasted hour is invisible, but devastating. 10 minutes of distraction in the morning multiplies into hours of drift later. One reactive email can snowball into a full day of firefighting, pulling you further away from what truly matters. You think you're busy, but you're really just reacting, trapped in a cycle where every morning sets you up to chase instead of create. And that's why most people stay stuck. Not because they lack talent, not because they lack opportunity, but because they waste the 1 hour that decides everything. They hand over their future in exchange for a few cheap hits of distraction. But here's the truth you need to hear. It doesn't have to be this way. That same fragile, powerful window between 8 and 9 a.m. can either be the reason your future collapses or the reason it transforms. It's the foundation, the launch pad, the mirror that reflects who you are becoming. If you reclaim it, you don't just reclaim your morning, you reclaim your life. And so the real question becomes this. Why does this 1 hour carry such weight? Why does it hold the power to predict your future in ways you don't even see yet? Why the 89 a.m. hour is sacred? There's a reason this single hour matters more than any other. Between 8 and 9 a.m., your brain is in a state it will never return to again that day. It's fresh, it's quiet, it hasn't yet been hijacked by the noise of the world. It's the only window where you hold complete control if you don't give it away. Think of your mind like a sponge. In the morning, it's dry, unmarked, ready to absorb the very first thing you pour into it. If you fill it with chaos, emails, news, arguments, endless scrolling, then chaos is exactly what it will soak up. Stress, distraction, mental fog, and the rest of your day follows that pattern whether you realize it or not. But if you feed it clarity, focus, and direction, the sponge soaks that in instead. You carry it forward like momentum, powering everything else you touch. Here's the tension. Most people don't realize how fragile this hour truly is. They assume they'll make up for it later. They say, it's fine if I waste this morning, focus this afternoon, but it doesn't work that way. Science has shown your brain's peak clarity, creativity, and problem-solving ability live in the early hours. Once you lose it, it's gone, and the rest of the day becomes a game of cleanup. You can't win the day if you've already lost the morning. That's why the people who achieve extraordinary things guard this hour like their life depends on it. CEOs, innovators, athletes, artists, they all know the truth. They don't schedule meetings at 8 a.m. They don't waste that time on reaction. They use it as their launch pad. They pour their most important thinking, their hardest problems, their deepest creative work into this one window, because if they can push the mission forward before the world interrupts, the rest of the day is already a victory. And here's what most people don't see. It's not about cramming more tasks into the morning. It's not about doing more. It's about doing first what actually matters. That's why this hour predicts your future. Because every single morning, you are making a choice. Do you let the world write the script for your day, or do you write it yourself? Do you start as the author of your life, or as a character in somebody else's story? And here's the payoff. If you protect this sacred hour, it compounds. One intentional morning doesn't just create a good day, it sets off a chain reaction. Stack enough of those mornings together, and suddenly you've built a new rhythm, a new momentum, a new identity, one that's focused, one that's disciplined, one that's moving relentlessly toward the future you know you're capable of creating. Because the real difference between drifting and designing your life isn't luck. It isn't talent. It isn't even raw hard work. It's what you do in that one fragile hour when nobody's watching. And if you doubt it, just look around. The world's most successful people in every field share one thing in common. They guard their mornings with their lives. And the results, the companies, the breakthroughs, the art, the medals are impossible to ignore. Proof from high performers. If you still doubt how powerful 1 hour can be, just look at the people who built entire empires by protecting their mornings. The proof isn't hidden, it's all around you, woven into the lives of those who refuse to waste their first hour. Take writers, for example. Do you know how most best-selling books are written? Not in endless 12-hour marathons, not in chaotic bursts of late-night caffeine. They're written in the quiet of the morning, one protected hour at a time. An author wakes up, sits down, and writes between 8 and 9 a.m., day after day, word after word. 1 hour doesn't sound like much, but 365 mornings later, they're holding a full manuscript in their hands, a book that can change their life and ripple into the lives of millions of others. To the world, it looks like sudden genius, but in reality, it's the compounding power of mornings no one else saw. Athletes live by the same law. Picture the Olympic swimmer. While the rest of the world is still tangled in sheets, they're in the pool at sunrise, slicing through water in silence. Not for one morning, not for a week, for years. That single hour of disciplined practice sharpens their body and mind until the day comes when they stand on the podium, gold medal glinting around their neck. The crowd sees the victory. What they don't see are the thousands of mornings where that medal was really forged. And entrepreneurs, the greatest ideas, the ones that change industries, the ones that build billion-dollar companies, they don't usually come in the middle of chaotic offices or boardrooms. They come in the quiet of the morning hour before the world barges in. Elon Musk himself has admitted that some of his sharpest breakthroughs for SpaceX and Tesla came in those quiet early hours when his mind could finally breathe. He wasn't working harder, he was working earlier, deeper, undisturbed, and he's not alone. Benjamin Franklin famously carved out his mornings for reflection and planning. Steve Jobs used mornings to ask himself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I'm about to do? Maya Angelou wrote her most celebrated works by waking early and disappearing into solitude. The common thread, they treated mornings like sacred ground. Here's what connects all of these stories. Success didn't come from finding more time. It didn't come from working around the clock. It came from fiercely protecting the little time they already had. One sacred hour, that's all. And when you multiply that hour across weeks, months, and years, it becomes unstoppable momentum. Let's do the math. 1 hour a day doesn't feel like much in the moment. You might even convince yourself it's too small to matter. But stretched across a year, that 1 hour becomes 365 hours. That's the equivalent of more than 9 full work weeks dedicated entirely to your future. 9 weeks of pure creation, 9 weeks of skill building, 9 weeks of clarity. And momentum. And it's all hidden inside a single daily choice that most people throw away without thinking. Now contrast that with the average person. They spend that same hour lost in distractions, scrolling through endless feeds, drowning in news cycles, stumbling through morning panic. Stack up their year, and what do they have? Not 365 hours of creation, but 365 hours of wasted energy, 365 hours of scattered focus, 365 hours of opportunities they'll never get back. That's the difference between someone who builds a future and someone who wakes up years later, staring at the ceiling, asking themselves, where did the time go? The truth is, it went into mornings they didn't protect. And this is why 89 a.m. predicts your future, because that 1 hour doesn't just shape your day, it compounds into the person you become. Ordinary people drift into mornings and wonder why their lives feel out of control. Extraordinary people design their mornings, and in doing so, they design their destiny. So the real question is, how do you stop wasting it? How do you take back this sacred hour and use it to build the life you know you're capable of? The traps that steal your morning. If 89 a.m. predicts your entire future, then the greatest danger isn't what you think. It's not laziness. It's not a lack of talent. It's not even fear. The real danger is far more subtle. It's the invisible traps that rob you of this sacred hour before you even realize it's gone. These traps don't announce themselves. They creep in quietly, and before you know it, your future has been stolen one morning at a time. The first trap is the snooze button. It seems harmless, right? Just 5 more minutes. But it's never just 5. It's the first negotiation you make with weakness. It's you telling your mind that comfort is more important than commitment. Every time you hit snooze, you reinforce the identity of someone who avoids rather than acts. And here's the truth. If you can't win the first battle of the morning getting up when you said you would, how can you expect to win the battles that actually shape your future? The snooze button isn't about sleep. It's about trust. If you can't trust yourself at 8 a.m., you won't trust yourself anywhere else. The second trap is your phone. It's the most seductive thief of them all. Before you've even had a clear thought, you're drowning in other people's noise. One notification turns into 5, a quick check becomes a black hole, and suddenly, your most powerful hour has been handed. Away to strangers, headlines, memes, and meaningless chatter. The moment you unlock your phone, your mind is no longer yours, it's theirs. Their agenda, their urgency, their chaos. And the saddest part, most people never get their mind back for the rest of the day. The third trap is rushing. You wake up late, you're already behind. You're shoving food in your mouth, scrambling for your keys, running out the door. It feels like movement, but it's not progress. Rushed mornings don't build futures, they build panic. And panic never creates anything worth keeping. When you live like this, every day starts with the feeling that you're losing before you've even begun. And when you start with loss, you rarely end with victory. The fourth trap is drifting, pretending you don't need structure. You tell yourself, I'll just go with the flow this morning. You'll see where the day takes me. But let me tell you the truth. The day never takes you where you want to go. Drift always leads to distraction. Always. Your brain is wired for the easy path, the path of least resistance. And if you don't command it, it will find something cheap, shallow, and meaningless to waste the hour on. Drifting is the slow death of your future, and most people never even notice it happening. Here's what makes these traps so dangerous. They don't just steal minutes, they steal identity. Every time you hit snooze, every time you check your phone, every time you rush, every time you drift, you're not just wasting time, you're telling yourself a story of weakness, distraction, and surrender. And repeat that story long enough, and it becomes who you are. Not because you chose it consciously, but because you allowed the traps to write your identity for you. But here's the hope. Once you see these traps, they lose their power. You can't fight an enemy you don't know exists. But now you do. You know the snooze button is weakness disguised as comfort. You know your phone is a leash disguised as entertainment. You know rushing is panic disguised as progress. And you know drifting is death disguised as freedom. When you see them for what they really are, you stop excusing them, you stop tolerating them, and you start fighting back, because the truth is, these traps don't just steal your mornings, they steal your life. And the only way to reclaim it is to build a battle plan strong enough to protect your sacred hour, no matter what. So the real question becomes, how do you win that battle? How do you protect 89 a.m. so fiercely that nothing, not distractions, not panic, not weakness can break through? The morning blueprint, 89 a.m. formula. Now that you've seen the traps that steal your mornings, it's time for the battle plan. Because here's the truth. You don't rise to the level of your intentions, you fall to the level of your systems. Good intentions won't save your morning. Motivation won't save it either. If you wake up without a strategy, the world will hijack your sacred hour before you even realize it's gone. That's why you need a blueprint, a clear, repeatable formula that transforms this fragile hour into the engine of your future. Think of it like a launch sequence. You don't improvise a rocket launch, you follow the steps in the right order every single time. And if you do, you reach orbit. This is your launch sequence for 89 a.m. Step 1, silence and centering. 5 and 10 minutes. The first thing you need in the morning is not noise, it's silence. Your brain just woke up. It's fresh, raw, and vulnerable. And what you pour into it in these first minutes will echo all day. So resist the urge to check your phone, scroll the news, or talk yourself into stress. Instead, give yourself silence. Sit in stillness, stretch, breathe, pray, meditate, whatever form works for you, because silence creates space. And in that space, your mind stabilizes. Without it, you're dragging yesterday's chaos into today, and that chaos will dictate every decision. Step 2, the clarity question, 10-15 minutes. Once you've centered yourself, your mind is awake and ready. Now it needs direction. This is where you ask the most important question of the day. What is the one problem that, if solved today, would change everything else? Write it down. Don't leave it vague. Your brain craves clarity, not clutter. Most people skip this step and spend the entire day reacting busy but aimless. You're different. You anchor yourself on the one thing that matters. That clarity becomes your compass. With it, every action has purpose. Without it, you drift, and drifting is death to your future. Step 3, deep work on the mission, 30-40 minutes. This is the heart of the blueprint. You've identified the problem. Now you give it your best energy. For 30 to 40 minutes, you go all in. No phone, no distractions, no interruptions. Just you, your brain, and the work that actually matters. It could be writing, designing, building, strategizing, whatever pushes your mission forward. 30 minutes may not sound like much, but here's the truth. 30 minutes of deep, undisturbed focus is worth more than 6 hours of scattered multitasking. Most people spend their entire day putting out fires. You spend your morning building a future. Imagine this. While the world is still yawning, still scrolling, still stumbling into panic, you're already stacking bricks toward your vision. Day after day, those bricks become walls. Those walls become structures. Those structures become the life you've been trying to build for years. All from 1 hour. Step 4, future alignment, 10 minutes. The final step is alignment. You don't just close the hour and move on. You take 10 minutes to reflect and project. Write down what you accomplished. Note the next step. Reconnect it to your bigger vision. This is where you remind yourself, this morning wasn't just about today's task, it was about the person you're becoming. These 10 minutes give meaning to the effort. They lock the lesson in, they turn your morning into momentum. And here's the tension you need to face. If you don't build a structure like this, the traps will win. You'll drift back to snooze buttons, mindless scrolling, rushing, and chaos. The world will pull you away. Comfort will whisper in your ear, urgency will hijack your focus, and you'll end the day wondering why nothing really changed. That's why most people stay stuck, not because they don't want more, but because they never build a system strong enough to protect the hour that decides everything. But here's the payoff. When you follow this blueprint, you win the day before it even begins. You don't start on defense, you start on offense. You don't live in reaction, you live in design. That single hour becomes a declaration. Every morning you follow this system, you're proving to yourself, I am not a drifter, I am a designer. I don't surrender my future, I create it. And the longer you repeat it, the more powerful it becomes, because something deeper starts to shift. This hour is no longer just a habit, it becomes your identity. And let's find out more. The identity shift. At first, protecting your mornings feels like a discipline, a routine, a checklist you force yourself to follow. But then something shifts. One day you wake up, you go through the hour, and you realize this isn't just a habit anymore. It's becoming who you are, because identity is not built in grand moments. It's not defined by promotions, awards, or achievements. Identity is built in the small, quiet decisions that you repeat every single day. The choices you make when nobody is watching, and nothing shapes that identity more powerfully than the decision you make every morning between 8 and 9 a.m. If you hit snooze, if you scroll, if you drift, you are telling yourself a story. You are whispering, am the kind of person who avoids, am the kind of person who reacts, am the kind of person who wastes the time that matters most. And that story doesn't just stay in the morning, it follows you into your work, into your relationships, into your future. And the more you repeat it, the more it becomes who you are. But when you protect that sacred hour, you tell yourself a different story. You sit down even when you don't feel like it. You ask the hard question, you do the deep work, you align with your future, and in that moment, you are saying to yourself, I am the kind of person who shows up. I am the kind of person who creates. I am the kind of person who refuses to drift. Do this once, and it feels like progress. Do it for a week, and it feels like momentum. Do it for a month, and it feels like identity. You stop trying to become disciplined. You are disciplined. You stop trying to get focused. You are focused. The morning isn't something you fight with anymore. It's something you own. And that's why the 89 a.m. hour predicts your future, because every morning you are proving something to yourself. You're proving who you are. If you waste it, you become the person who wastes opportunities. If you protect it, you become the person who builds them. And over time, that identity shapes everything: your habits, your decisions, your direction, your destiny. This is bigger than productivity, bigger than checklists, bigger than getting more done. This is about rewriting who you are, brick by brick, morning by morning. Because here's the truth: the future is not decided in one dramatic moment. It's decided in thousands of small ones. And the most important of them all is what you choose to do when the clock strikes 8. So tomorrow morning, when the alarm goes off and your mind tempts you with comfort, remember this: that hour is not just another block of time. It's the fork in the road. One path takes you back into drift, into autopilot, into the same future you're desperate to escape. The other path takes you into design, into focus, into a future you can finally be proud of, and the choice is yours. Nobody else can make it for you. Not your boss, not your partner, not your friends, just you. So when the clock hits 8 a.m., ask yourself, will I drift or will I design? Because that one decision doesn't just decide your day, it decides your destiny.